Hello and welcome to my presentation with the title Challenges of Teaching During Corona, Agile Teaching Methods During a Pandemic. My name is Simone Emmert. I'm a professor for law at the Faculty of Social Sciences at the Technical University of Nuremberg, Georg Simon Ohm in Germany. I would like to give you an overview of the study according the following points, which is first the methodology I've used, then explaining the research questions, explaining the teaching situation I had before the pandemic began. Then we had the change through the pandemic, and I would like to mention the obstacles and challenges of teaching during the pandemic I had to face. Then the measures of adaptation I've done. Then 6 is the outcomes for me as the role of a teaching professor, and then we will have a conclusion. When it comes to the methodology, I would locate myself within a qualitative social research approach where I used self-evaluation after each class I taught during the period of 2 years of distance teaching. So the exact time frame for me was the summer term 2020 until the summer term 2022. Where did I taught? I taught at 3 German universities with more than in total 300 students. All of them had been enrolled in a BA program of social work, and the universities I taught had been the University of Applied Sciences in Magdeburg, which is the capital of Saxony-Anhalt, then a private university, the Friedensau Adventist University, as well in Saxony-Anhalt, and then finally the Technical University Georg Simon Ohm in Nuremberg. What kind of courses did I taught? I taught, for example, family law, social law, and labor law, and after each class I had a self-evaluation based on a questionnaire, and all the questions could be answered anonymously. The research questions I would like to answer during my study are: first, what obstacles and challenges occurred during a teaching experience in Germany? And second, what kind of measures of adaptation and what changes had been made to ensure the continuity of teaching? Even before the pandemic, I wanted to change myself and improve my teaching style by becoming more interactive with my students and avoiding a mere lecture-based approach, which I considered myself as boring. So a couple of time ago, I had learned about Agile working through friends from the IT, and I thought, why not using this approach also for teaching? So instead of using the term client or customer, we have to replace it with student when it comes to education. But what is Agile exactly? I refer here to the Agile Alliance and the Agile Manifesto that had been written in 2001 by a group of 17 independent-minded software practitioners. And I quote, therefore, for the definition, their webpage, where we can read, Agile is the ability to create and respond to change. It is the way of dealing with and ultimately succeeding in an uncertain and turbulent environment. The authors of the Agile Manifesto choose Agile as the label for this whole idea because that word represented the adaptiveness and response to change, which was so important to their approach. It's really about thinking through how you can understand what's going on in the environment that you're in today, identify what uncertainty you're facing, and figure out how you can adapt to that as you go along. End of quotation. Now, the big change came with the beginning of the pandemic, and the obstacles I had in my specific case. First and foremost, technical problems, because I lived in the rural environment of Saxony-Anhalt within a village of about 300 people. I did not have a very stable internet connection at that time. So what did I do? I had to sit down at the beverage crate, as you can see here in the picture on the right side, with the laptop on my knees, because I had to plug in a LAN cable to my router, and the router had been located in my closet. That was the reason why I had to sit down in the closet. And other obstacles I had to face were that I have a cat, and sometimes the cat came in making silly noises, as you can see here on the picture. And I remember a very specific afternoon, not only making my cat silly noises, but also my daughter came in. She had an accident because she was roller skating outside, and then she fell down and was crying. And I was trying to teach, and I had to interrupt and pause. And after that, my students told me, well, that makes you even more sympathetic, and you are human. That makes you really a human, because we can see you are facing exactly the same problems as we are facing right now. I would cluster the obstacles and challenges of teaching for myself according to the following 4 aspects. These are personal, mental, technical, and environmental. So personal challenges I had to face had been the situation that I'm a single parent. I was homeschooling at the same time as I was working in my home office full time. And mental, I realized that after a certain period of time, I had like a sort of cognitive overload, because I was not only preparing my classes when it comes to the content, to the legal content, but at the same time, I had to learn about new IT tools, such as how to use Zoom, how to organize Zoom meetings, or how to record PowerPoint slides. And as I'm a very perfectionist person, each time I wasn't very satisfied with the recording, I stopped it and I did it again. And then I realized sometimes it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and this was really exceeding the average working hours I used to prepare classes. Then the technical challenges, I would say, are also linked to the environmental challenges that are having a stable internet connection in a village of 300 persons, where most of them are either students or professors. And we had to adjust teaching times so it was possible to teach without being interrupted or having an internet breakdown, because everyone was streaming at the same time. I would also say we can have controllable and internal influences. That means something that is internal I can control and I can change myself. Then we have uncontrollable influences, that these are usually linked to the external aspects. I cannot control them. So that means I have to accept the uncertainty, I have to accept the turbulences, I have to accept change. So what was my first reaction by distance teaching? The first reaction was, unfortunately, one step backwards, because I realized that I adapted myself to a rather mere lecture-based approach, where my students had been consuming the legal content, and I was trying to explain and to teach as much as possible instead of having some kind of interaction, because I realized I lost so much time according to technical or environmental fallouts, that I wanted to use the minimum of time by at least providing the mere legal content. The lecture-based approach soon led to frustration from my part, so I decided to adopt 2 new measures. These are just-in-time teaching and the method of flipped classroom. So what is just-in-time teaching? I refer here to the Vanderbilt University Center for Teaching, and I would like to quote them by explaining just-in-time teaching is a teaching and learning strategy designed to promote the use of class time for more active learning. It is an approach that had been developed by Nuremberg and colleagues, and just-in-time teaching relies on a feedback loop between web-based learning materials and the classroom. So students prepare for class by reading from the textbook or using other resources that had been posted to the web. In my case, that had been the Moodle platform, and by completing assignments online. These assignments often have complex answers. So students work outside class. This serves as a preparation for more complete work in class. The students' answers had been delivered to me before my class started, and that allowed me also to adapt the lesson as needed. So importantly, just-in-time teaching allows to create an interactive classroom environment that emphasizes active learning and cooperative problem solving. So in my case, I adopted that my students had to solve legal cases. I prepared questions and they could complete and answer the questions at home, also during Teams. And for that reason, I used breakout sessions during the Zoom sessions, and they had to use the same group for the breakout sessions, also for the group assignment at home. Then we had the next lesson, and in the next lesson, then I had the results of the breakout sessions, and we had the discussions, and I could adjust my lecture according also to their needs and to their questions. I combined the method of just-in-time teaching also with the method of a flipped classroom, and therefore I call my measures of adaptation 2 steps forward. So what is flipped classroom or flipped learning? I refer here to the Flipped Learning Network, and I'm citing here their webpage. And they define flipped learning is a pedagogical approach in which direct instruction moves from the group learning space to the individual learning space, and the resulting group space is transformed into a dynamic, interactive learning environment where the educator guides students as they apply concepts and engage creatively in the subject matter. So in my case, I prepared teaching materials such as scientific articles, sometimes also a video, and I assigned breakout sessions during the Zoom meeting. My students had been given a certain period of time, such as 15 or 20 minutes. They had to read the article, they had to discuss questions, and then also they had to discuss their results within the breakout sessions. If the time had not been enough, so I combined it also with the just-in-time teaching. They could prepare the questions at home, and then in the following class we had the discussions about their results. Describing my path of teaching development, I would say that I started from a synchronous online teaching in the summer term 2020, and I ended up by a mixture of synchronous, asynchronous, blended learning in the summer term of 2022, where I taught in class, had at the same time students attending class online via Zoom, and recorded the Zoom classes because I wanted to be inclusive for those who could not attend at all and offer them the possibility of asynchronous learning. For the definition of synchronous and asynchronous learning, I refer here to the Ohio State University, which I quote as following. Synchronous learning means that although you will be learning from a distance, you will virtually attend a class session each week at the same time as your instructor and classmates. The class is a firm weekly time commitment that cannot be rescheduled. Much like an on-campus class, you will have readings and assignments to complete outside of class time to help prepare you to participate in the classroom. This kind of preparation from students, along with a dedicated agenda set by the instructor, ensures each class session is productive. Asynchronous learning allows you to learn on your own schedule within a certain time frame. You can access and complete lectures, readings, homework, and other learning materials at any time during a 1 or 2 week period. End of quotation. For the definition of blended learning, I refer to Zuban, Hartman, and Moscow, and they define blended learning should be viewed as a pedagogical approach that combines the effectiveness and socialization opportunities of the classroom with the technologically enhanced active learning possibilities of the online environment, rather than a ratio of delivery modalities. The key element of all my classes had been my presence. I had been present in almost all of my classes, as I used asynchronous materials only occasionally, and even in the recorded classes, my students could see me interact with those attending the classes. By the way, consent to the recording had been given by all of my students. The presence had been mentioned very positively in every evaluation after the term, as it gave the students continuity and a real person whom they could address and speak not only about the legal contents I was delivering, but more important, through the pandemics, they also used me as a person they could talk to about their feelings and needs during this period of change. So what had been finally the outcomes for me in the role of a teaching professor? The pandemic had been the start of a path that led to a work overload when it comes not only to prepare for the legal content, but also to learn new approaches, also by online teaching. The work overload led personally also to a high amount of frustration. After the frustration, there had been a period of adaptation, as explained. I also learned in that period of adaptation to take better care of myself, and also the aspect of presence. The aspect of presence led to a satisfaction by my students, and also I was satisfied because of the feedback of my students and also of the interaction I had while being present with my students. And the result would be I adopted some kind of ambiguity tolerance, where tolerance of ambiguity is a necessary condition for creativity. And I have the feeling at the end right now that while learning not only about my legal content, but also learning about new teaching methods and also learning about IT, this also leads to a new amount of creativity for my own. When I explained the aspect of Agile method, I explained that this is the ability to create and respond to change and a method of dealing with uncertain and turbulent environments. I would say that from my own parcours during this pandemic, being agile helped me to survive the pandemic, and it also led to an improvement of my teaching style. So I would use this image here, learning how to ride on the wave of chaos, as a metaphor for being agile in the teaching environment. Thank you for your attention.